Gateway Mall on History Talk, where we look at the people, places, and events that shaped our community. As soon as Interstate 94 was completed in 1965, it was inevitable that the area where the new highway bisected with existing Highway 83 would become a major commercial center. It was only 3 years after the interstate's completion that the first major effort commenced to establish a shopping center where Gateway Mall now occupies. Had that followed through as announced, Gateway Mall could have been the larger of Bismarck's 2 regional shopping centers, but those plans fell through, and the much smaller Gateway Mall didn't open until almost a decade later, developed at the same time as Kirkwood Mall's major expansion. These 2 mall projects completed the migration of major retail from downtown Bismarck. Together with Kmart, which opened 8 years earlier in 1971, Gateway Mall anchored the State Street commercial corridor, stimulating major commercial development. Even today, State Street remains a major commercial corridor and continues to expand. Originally bounded to the north by Century Avenue, considered to be the northern edge of Bismarck at the time of Gateway's opening, State Street development pushed north of Century Avenue beginning in the late 1990s and now extends about 3 miles north of Gateway Mall. Plans for a shopping center on the west side of US Highway 83 near I-94 were first unveiled in October 1968. That was only 1 month after Kirkwood Mall's announcement. Century Mall, as it was to be called, was to feature 3 anchor stores and 50 total tenants contained in 600,000 square feet, soon upgraded to 650,000 square feet. By comparison, Kirkwood Mall's original size was only 422,000 square feet. It's interesting to contemplate the impact Century Mall would have had given its larger size and arguably better location than Kirkwood Mall. Denver-based Century 21 Corporation was the developer behind the proposed $11 million shopping center, which was expected to open in 1970. Several tenants who would later occupy Gateway Mall were attached to the project, including White Drug, Maurice's, and Orange Julius, as was a movie theater. Century Mall was more than a concept. Major milestones were achieved towards its construction, including platting the development and outlining the streets. In fact, a classified was placed in the Bismarck Tribune, recruiting a manager for Orange Julius's upcoming Century Mall location in May 1969. In Bismarck, Century 21 hadn't formally purchased the land as of July 1969, and no further plans were ever announced beyond 1970. Its developer had planned for similarly designed Century Malls across 8 cities, including 4 in North Dakota, in Bismarck, Fargo, Minot, and Grand Forks. Despite that sites had been secured in all of the cities, except Fargo and Sioux Falls, and that tenant agreements were struck, none of the malls ever materialized as conceptualized. In 1973, the Cavany family, owners of the land where Century Mall was to be developed, requested new platting and annexation by the city. This laid the groundwork for developing Gateway Mall and other nearby commercial projects. The Cavanys were partners in developing Northbrook Mall about 10 years earlier, and many of Gateway Mall's initial tenants previously occupied Northbrook. Planning for Gateway Mall progressed in 1976. It was originally known as Gateway West Mall before the west part of the name was dropped prior to opening. In February, Bob Cavany requested rezoning and replatting, setting aside 27 additional acres, bounded by Century and Gateway Avenues, for a proposed major shopping complex. 12 acres to the southwest would be dedicated for multi-housing, to act as a buffer zone between commercial and single-family units. The developers noted that they could develop the shopping center within the existing 50 commercial zoned acres, but preferred the additional acreage, assumingly for possible expansion. Anchors of Gateway Mall were announced in May 1978, and DCOM Corp. Of Minneapolis commenced construction in June. The shopping center was developed by North Bismarck Associates, a key player of which was the Cavany family, for $8 million. It was 320,000 square feet, with space set aside on the mall's northwest side for a future 150,000 square foot expansion to include a 4th anchor. While the expansion never truly came to fruition, the mall's movie theater later occupied much of that space.
DCOM Corporation, the developer of Gateway Mall, is from Minneapolis, Minnesota. DCOM stated that work is expected to begin this month on the first phase of the center, containing approximately 320,000 square feet of space. The center may be expanded to 500,000 square feet in the near future. Major stores programmed at this time include Sears, Roebuck & Company, White Mart Department and Home Care Center, and the A.W. Lucas Company. Approximately 60 additional stores are anticipated in the initial phase of the center, which will feature many of the country's better-known specialty stores.
Work is progressing well according to those associated with the new center in North Bismarck. Robert Froming, president of Dacom Corporation, the developer for the project, says crews are already shaping approximately a quarter of the proposed 320,000 square foot operation. He says the structural steel already visible includes the White Mart store and part of the mall area. In addition to White Mart, the A.W. Lucas Company and Sears Roebuck have announced they will be tenants in the mall. Froming says leasing for other shops in the center is going very well, but he says he has no names to reveal at this time.
Gateway was 100% leased upon completion, with 57 tenants. Some of the tenants originally attached to Century Mall set up shop inside Gateway, and some others relocated from Northbrook. Many of them had a second location either at Kirkwood or downtown. Junior anchor Osco Drug and 3 full-line anchors initially supported the shopping center. National department store Sears at 89,000 square feet. Longtime local department store A.W. Lucas at 45,000 square feet. And regional discount department chain White Mart at 49,000 square feet. All 3 of these anchors were downtown fixtures, with Sears and Lucas fully relocating. Osco Drug was the first tenant to occupy Gateway Mall, opening on May 7, 1979. Osco relocated from its downtown 4th Street storefront while also maintaining its Kirkwood Mall location. The shopping center held a soft opening on August 15, 1979, with a grand opening celebration the following month on September 12th. Construction of the mall was still ongoing, with only 30 of the tenants open at that time. Lucas and Osco were the only occupied anchors upon the mall's opening, with Sears following in October and White Mart on February 28, 1980. Sears, once the nation's largest retailer, first opened a Bismarck store in 1946, replacing longtime local department store Webb Brothers, who closed in December 1945. It was housed in today's Zimmerman's Furniture until relocating to Gateway Mall. It was the longest surviving original anchor, closing in 2018 as the chain struggled nationwide. As of today, the space remains vacant. Lucas dated back to 1899, when Arthur Lucas and William O'Hara established a clothing and dry goods store at 114 North 4th Street. It held many downtown locations over the years, as many as 4 operating concurrently. Its space at Gateway was larger than all of these combined. White Mart was the new division of White Drug in the company's attempt to diversify away from pharmacies. Indeed, this type of store was needed at the time, for Kmart had been the only discount department store since Temple's closing in 1976, although both Target and Woolco would establish that same year as White Mart, perhaps saturating the market. Other original tenants included Joann Fabrics, Hanson's Menswear, Lowe's Garden Center, Lund Jewelry, Midwest Vision, Musicland, Radio Shack, Regis, Maurice's, Barker's, The Cheddar Box, Walker's and Daughters Jeweler, Richmond's Bouderie, Bob's Photo, Meredith's Craft and Hobby, Merle Norman, Perry's, The Jeaner, Young America, Kinney Shoes, and Clowntown. Its designated food court housed 5 fast food restaurants: Orange Julius, Taco Tina, Turn of the Century, which was a fast food delicatessen, Pop's Ice Cream Shop, and an unnamed snack bar. Having a food court helped set Gateway apart from Kirkwood, which never had one. A movie theater was always intended for Gateway, but wasn't added until 1985, with an addition to the mall's north. The mall expected to add a 4th anchor to the north upon opening, but that never materialized. A 4th anchor to that space has been rumored for years, even in recent years, with Macy's often being cited as a possible tenant, but there was never any official announcement. The first films screened at Gateway's movie theater were St. Elmo's Fire, Sylvester, and Life Force. The owner of Gateway's theater, Mid-Continent Theaters, also owned Dakota Twin and Plaza Theater at Kirkwood. In 1994, Mid-Continent expanded the Gateway Theater to 8 screens for an estimated $500,000 and rebranded as Midco 8. It was Bismarck's largest and most modern theater at the time. Mid-Continent closed Dakota Twin with the Gateway expansion. Carmike and later AMC acquired the Gateway Movie Theater, which closed in 2020 amidst the coronavirus pandemic and never reopened. This space remains vacant. Less than 3 years after Gateway Mall's opening, A.W. Lucas permanently shuttered in summer 1982 after 83 years in business. By October of that year, Moorhead-based Eckstein department store occupied the space, which was purchased by Herberger's the following year.
While Bismarck representatives aren't talking, Terry Eckstein, who runs the Moorhead store, said the company was just too small and its financial problems too big to continue operating. Eckstein said the 3-year-old Moorhead store wasn't doing well, so the company opened the Bismarck branch to attract investors. But when sales didn't take off in the capital city, investors didn't invest. So the company decided to get out and sold to G.R. Herberger's Incorporated.
Herberger's had considered establishing itself as an anchor originally. News of Herberger's departure came in June 1993, when it greatly expanded its Kirkwood Mall location and consolidated its local stores. From 1995 until 1999, the center anchor was occupied by regional closeout deep discount department store Jacobs Trading Company, later called World's Greatest Deals. Upon its closure in 1999, Gateway was unable to attract a permanent replacement for the center anchor until Conlon's Furniture occupied it in 2004. Conlon's tenure at the mall was short-lived, relocating in December 2009 to its present location. This left the center anchor once again vacant. In March 2010, Gateway Mall announced that Famous Labels, an off-price retail chain, had signed a lease to occupy the south anchor space vacated by Conlon's Furniture. Famous Labels opened in November 2010, only to close in February 2012. For the next 3 years, the center anchor stood mostly vacant, until the opening of Harbor Freight Tools in 2015, which only occupied a portion of the former anchor. White Mart closed in 1986, shortly after its parent company merged with Minnesota-based Thrifty Drug to become Thrifty White. The newly formed company shed all White Mart stores over the next few years as it returned focus to pharmacies. The former White Mart space was soon after replaced by home improvement chain Menards. The space was slightly enlarged to house Menards, forcing 4 tenants to relocate. Menards vacated in 2000 after building its current freestanding store just north of the mall. In 2001, Prime Care converted 30,000 square feet, roughly half the former Menards anchor space, into a medical mall, which remains today. In 2003, Hancock Fabrics relocated into the remaining former Menards space from a location across the street from Kmart, establishing as a junior anchor with its own outside entrance. Hancock shuttered all of its stores in 2016. Planet Fitness occupied the space 2 years later. Osco Drug, considered a junior anchor, was the first store to open at Gateway Mall. It became CVS Pharmacy in 2006 upon acquisition, and relocated to a freestanding store in 2009. Joann Fabrics replaced the former drugstore in 2012. Joann was also an original tenant at Gateway Mall, slowly expanding its presence over the years. It last relocated inside the mall in 1990, into a space 3 times larger, combining 4 other spaces, then occupied by Nutrition World, Wisdom House Toys, Bojangles, and Good News Christian Bookstore. Those other retailers all relocated elsewhere in the mall. Between 2003 and 2006, Gateway Mall was sold a total of 3 times. Upon purchasing Gateway Mall in 2006, new owner Raymond Argman promised to pump new life into the dying shopping center, which was only 60% occupied at the time. A multi-million-dollar, quote, Hollywood-style renovation and ambitious expansion plans were soon announced for the newly christened Gateway Fashion Mall. By November 2006, it was reported that Gateway Mall was once again 100% leased for the first time in many years, and things appeared promising for the newly reinvented shopping center. The remodeling project completed in 2009, which included a new exterior facade and interior cosmetic upgrades. I invite you to check out my 2 Bismarck history books. They are available to purchase on Amazon and select local bookstores. Copies are also available at the Bismarck Public Library. Visit bismarckbook.com for more information. That was a look at Gateway Mall. Is there a local history topic you'd like to be featured? Email historytalk@kfyrtv.com. And be sure to check out our other segments on local retail history.